boils down to is I don't think we reach a different verdict if I do a retrial in this case.
Kent County Prosecuting Attorney Chris Becker announcing the end of his office pursuit of a second-degree murder charge against former Grand Rapids police officer Christopher Schurr. The announcement came during a press conference held this morning. News 8's Duncan McLean was in attendance, and he joins us now live in the studio with details on what led up to Becker's decision. Duncan?
Rick, Becker said when he addressed the media today that there were two main factors that played into his decision to forego a retrial: the quality of the jury and the quality of his case. He said both were as good as they were going to get, so he was confident there would not be a different result if it played out all over again. Now, jury and strength of case are the typical focal points when considering going for a retrial. He said he went back and reviewed the trial on video, something that he does not typically do, to make sure his case came out like he remembered. And he said even after that review, there's nothing he would change about the arguments. He also praised the jury for their engagement and discernment and said they remained on task and focused on the arguments made by his office and Schurr's defense, and that their painstaking jury selection process gave them as good a group as they could have hoped for.
I looked at what we did in the process. There were 43 strikes for cause. A lot of those were, they couldn't spend the time, they had conflicts, whatever it may be. But out of those, I recognized there were 15 that we said showed a bias to our case, at least in the process right there when we're questioning them. That didn't even reach. We had identified 30 before we even started selecting a jury of what I would term problematic jurors that I could say, geez, they're going to be a problem if we get them on the panel. They didn't make it into the jury box. So we then used 10 of our 12 peremptory challenges. I talked about this earlier, where we cleaned out people that after they came forward and for whatever reason, for a variety of reasons, some of which had ties with the law enforcement, that we did everything we could.
Becker also said the indications that they had from the jury also played a role in their decision. In their conversations with select jurors after the fact, those jurors indicated the room was initially split 3 ways, 4, 4, and 4, for not guilty, guilty, and undecided, but it started to shift as the trial went on. By the time they first indicated to the judge that they were hung, it was closer to a 5 to 7 split in favor of acquittal. And in the end, Becker said it was 10 to 2 in favor of acquittal. Schurr's attorney, though, since that conference indicated that the jury in the end was split 11 to 1 in favor of acquittal. Rick?
Duncan, thank you. Since the mistrial was declared 2 weeks ago, Target 8 investigator Ken Kolker has reached out to jurors trying to get insight into the deliberations. He spoke with one member of the jury who asked not to be identified. Ken's here now, and Ken, this is kind of a look behind the curtain a little.
Yeah, we're kind of looking at, what was in their minds. It took 4 days, 21 hours, so we were trying to find out, like you said, pull back the curtain, see what they were discussing. Now, we actually spoke to him through a series of emails over the last week or so. He was one of 3 men on the 12-member jury, and he says he was among the majority who voted to acquit former officer Christopher Schurr. Now, the prosecutor said that final vote was 10 to 2 for acquittal. The defense team says it was 11 to 1. The juror we spoke to said it was either 11 to 1 or 10 to 2 on the second-degree murder charge, and that it was so one-sided they barely discussed the alternate charge of manslaughter. He said the main holdout who voted to convict on the second-degree murder charge did not believe that the officer feared for his life while he struggled over that taser.
Yeah, it's really interesting for people who have never been at a trial from beginning to end, because you hear the high points, you hear the things that get reported, but there's so much information that jurors have to absorb, and their job is to decide within a reasonable doubt, and clearly, in this case, at least the majority of them could not.
And it was clearly very difficult, but as both sides said, this jury was really engaged, asked a lot of good questions, and they did their best. And their best was they couldn't reach a verdict. So tonight at 5 and 6, we'll talk to the juror a little bit more about the fact that he said race never came into the deliberations on this case.
And of course, there will be civil litigation that will be ongoing, and that's something that we'll be following.
Yeah, even the defense attorney said that this doesn't change that.
Right.
So, yeah.
All right. Ken, thank you, and thanks for sticking with this story from the very beginning. In a statement today, Grand Rapids City Manager Mark Washington said, quote, I know for some this is a very difficult day, and for others a great relief. Regardless, I expect for any and all community expressions to be lawful and civil as we navigate the path forward together. Grand Rapids Mayor David LaGrant also released a statement on today's decision. We'll have his response coming up at 5. And if you'd like to see more reaction from city and state officials, that's available right now at woodtv.com.